I get that it was more about the representation than the tax itself.
Yeah, it was a lot of political maneuvering that made the 2% seem a lot worse than it was.
Absolutely. But now we pay, it's like you pay taxes on the income that you receive, then you pay taxes to go spend the money, and then you pay taxes to drive
taxes on taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to do what the government wants me to do. No, in all honesty, though, I don't want to talk about Trump, but I'd like to talk about the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did Trump's coming into office back in December, January, something like that. It was at the election before he took office.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the economy. And now there's been pretty major things right now. They have the big, beautiful bill they're trying to vote on by the 4th. This will come out after that.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the tariffs for the last however many months.
Mm-hmm.
They just released that the tariffs put $88 million into circulation, or revenue for America. And what's the other thing? Oh, he keeps the Fed chair Powell, like he keeps playing Trump games with him and threatening to fire him and said, "I'll bet he sucks" and stuff. So those are pretty big levers that he's pulled or pulling that are affecting the economy. So I just want to take a second. How does that affect ownership? So business ownership, real estate ownership. I don't really care about the political side of things, but I watch politics more for how does it affect me? Mm-hmm. What are these laws that they're passing versus the political side of things? Because you can't believe that.
I haven't been keeping up with the news as much as I used to, but just understanding how money moves. And of course, people can be the exception to the rule, but the general rule is what economists follow, right? Is what do people do when there's uncertainty in the market? And they start to move their money out of the stock market, out of real estate, out of other types of affiliated securities and into safer investments like bonds. And what that does is, increase bond yields, right? And decreases or expands the cap rates on real estate and other types of commercial investments. So, that's what I've been seeing is the wells have been drying up in most of the investment areas. The stock market's completely uncertain. People don't know what's going to happen. Every news story, it's like seeing how volatile all the stocks are. Crazy. I can't even follow it.
That's why I don't like stock, but that's a whole different. I invest in the stock market just from
like S&P security.
Yeah, it makes I get a 401k and they do matching.
But you're not daily tracking stuff, and
absolutely not.
Looking this week, I saw the plan to get rid of or to limit pharmaceutical market. Like that is going to destroy those stocks.
You're talking about as far as advertising on TV?
No, they're doing.
I saw that
they want to do something to limit to cap their whatever.
There's quite a few things that they're talking about there.
I don't know enough about it to even talk.
They're talking about ban basically because we're only one of two countries that allows advertisement for pharmaceuticals on TV.
Yeah, it's not just advertisement though. It's something with capping their margins, like where they can develop a prescription for $1 and then they sell it for $100. They're going to try and restrict that. I don't know enough about it to even have an opinion about it, but I just
kind of
know
have a problem with that because how many years of research, millions of dollars did they spend? Like they should be able to, anyhow.
Oh, I get it. The general public talks about, the pharmaceutical industry is just crooks and all this stuff. And, I agree with, I stay pretty neutral about that. I don't believe in charging someone, one, we have a son with a peanut allergy. He needs an EpiPen, and those EpiPens are good for 3 to 5 years, but they make you get a new one every 6 months or every year, and they're $80-$90, per whatever, $200 without insurance. I think that's kind of ridiculous, but I do understand from the R&D.
Yeah, I guess you have to. It's easy to drill into one prescription, like they're charging 500% markup on this.
I think it's diabetic medicine has been a huge talking point.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But what's their overall percentage margin?
Insulin. That's what's called, sorry.
Yeah. So is everything 500%, or is it just that one thing? And why is it that much? Because they could have had 20 years of research that went into that, and they're just recouping their money.
Right.
So it's easy to jump into the politicalization of the pharmaceutical company.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at them and like, oh, they're 15% profit margin. That's a normal profit margin for, a typical business. You can't look at the micro. You have to look at the macro.
True, and I think that the where people get anti-capitalist almost about it. It's like we've talked before about the your relative, or you're compensated relative to the value you're providing, right? And the analogy of the guy that goes into a ship and bangs on a pipe with a hammer and fixes the ship, charges $5,000, and they say all you do is swing a hammer, and he puts an invoice that says swinging a hammer $1. It's like knowing where to hit $4,999. I get that aspect of it. It gets emotional when people are saying that you're basically leveraging people's desire to, cure their ailments or cancer, whatever treatments and all that stuff, and exploiting that for profitability. I could see the argument from both sides there.
Yeah, I could go on a whole podcast just about this one topic, but I'll leave my
back to the economy
opinions to that.
Back to the economy. Money dries up when things are uncertain.
I guess from my standpoint, I'm kind of excited about. So there was aspects of this big, beautiful bill that I didn't like, and I think Friday, Saturday, they cut them out. Or at least the big one. Then that one being the selling off of federal lands. I don't even know if you're watching that. So that one got cut out. Not more of a political thing. But from a money standpoint, an investment standpoint, like they're talking about bringing back 100% bonus depreciation, making it full term or full. Like,
why though?
Why does it excite me, or why are they doing it?
Well, both. What is the intention behind it? And then two, why do you like that stuff?
The intention, I think, from the government, well, I think it's two parts. One, they have a lot of rich buddies that need the tax write-off. That's the political side of it. But it stimulates the economy. So
what does that mean?
It keeps money in flow. So if they don't want money sitting on the sidelines, so people could take their investment or their money and invest it in something, be it affordable housing, be it new housing, be it whatever it is. But I hate the term loophole. Like, the government puts laws into place, economic laws into place, to help stimulate the economy. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
They're incentives.
But they're incentives to drive a habit. Mm-hmm. So they're
the same way that you bonus employees. Maybe you give your plumbers a bonus when they show up on time to work 7 days or a month in a row. You know, it's an incentive because it drives profitability, and the country is just a big business.
Correct. So that excites me from my personal standpoint, because as I buy more property, that means I pay less taxes. Mm-hmm. But people are like, well, that's anti-American, which I would.
Paying less taxes, yeah.
Yeah, I would say we fought a war over that. I don't think it's anti-American, but anyhow.
Over 2% tariffs.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing. But
it's true, though. The beginning of this country was over 2% tariffs. Wow. And now people willingly pay 30, 40%. I get that it was more about the representation than the tax itself.
Yeah, it was a lot of political maneuvering that made the 2% seem a lot worse than it was.
Absolutely. But now we pay... It's like you pay taxes on the income that you receive, then you pay taxes to go spend the money, and then you pay taxes to drive
taxes on taxes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I want to do what the government wants me to do in order to pay less taxes. Right. So how can I help benefit my family, benefit the community, and benefit the country, and pay less taxes? And
it's because the things that they want you to do, like owning real estate, they provide jobs. They add more money back into the economy by, paying utility companies and construction companies and, all these things. It generates. So $100,000 I saw a study, and it was like $100,000 purchase indirectly contributes to, it's somewhere around like 400 jobs. and it sounds crazy because we're like, my property is bringing in $1,000 a month. I'm not paying, that many people, but just even through all the intrinsic things that it has. And so when you're improving a property, you're paying, more relative taxes, and it has property taxes. That is, it has more influence. When you talked about money flowing, I saw a video on YouTube a while back of, it was a skit, like almost like not what's it called? Slapstick comedy. What are they called? Not Beavis and Butthead. Oh gosh, that's gonna bother me. But basically, it was like three guys standing in a circle, and he was like, you owe me $10, and he's like, hey, can I borrow $20 from this guy? And he's like, yeah, all right. And then he gives the money to this guy, and he's like, oh wait, you owe me $20. And then
so I'll unpack that because there was, I don't know if you're the one that told me this, but there's
Three Stooges. That's what I was thinking of. Sorry.
So yeah, there was a guy, and hopefully I don't butcher the story, but guy went to the inn, rented a room from the inn for $100.
Yep.
He paid the guy $100. The inn owner owed a guy $100, so he took that $100, paid it to that guy. That guy owed another guy $100. He paid it to that guy. That guy owed the other guy $100. He gave it the original guy $100.
The guy staying in the
inn. Guy staying in the inn, and so he gave him his $100. At the end, right at the end, who had what money?
Right.
Because the guy basically ended up staying at the inn for free, and nobody, like, the money just moved in circulation. No one became any richer. No one became any poorer. They all
just paid down debt.
They all just paid down what they owed.
And that is how our economy operates. And so I think that's what's so important. That's why I want to highlight that is COVID is a perfect example. Why did we get all these stimulus checks? What does it even mean to have a stimulus check? It's to stimulate the economy, because when people are scared or they're stuck at home, locked away, not allowed to go anywhere, what happens is they just keep their money in their bank account and they don't spend anything. And if I'm sitting at home, keeping my money in my bank account, the person who's working at Amazon doesn't have any money coming in to pay their salary so that they can pay their bills. And granted, it's all just that, like you said, circulation. Is when money stands still, people aren't able to pay their bills. They're not able to spend more money. And so I think that's the important thing I would love to look at an illustration of this, or maybe we can find.
Well, I think that's what Trump's trying to do, is he's trying to, the tariffs are trying to circulate world economy. So I think he's got a multi-lever thing. Like, he doesn't talk like this, but he's trying to take money from overseas, bringing it back to America, increasing our GDP. What I think people don't understand is GDP is gross domestic product. So any dollar that we spend that goes overseas does not affect our GDP.
Right.
It's gross domestic product. So he's trying to take money from overseas, bring it back stateside, keep it stateside, and increase our GDP, which will in turn circulate more money in America, which will in turn make more tax dollars and all that stuff, help out the economy. So it's like,
our entire economy thrives in that. And
yeah, there's so much stuff going on. And that's what, like, when they start the tariff things, they're like, oh, tariffs are inflationary. Well, here we are 6 months later, and inflation's lower than it was 6 months ago. So, like, where's the argument there?
Well, and I think one of the arguments is that the way that they're framing it is that these tariffs we're taxing China. China's shipping products over here, we're taxing them. When what China's doing is they're just increasing the price of the product, or the shipping cost.
Like, so what they did,
I look at stuff on Alibaba or
and that's what Temu and stuff. Yeah, I was about to say, they really hit those people hard.
Yeah, and I look at those things, and it was like, for something I could buy a pack of 1,000 for a product for $1 a piece, it's still $1 a piece. They haven't changed the manufacturing cost. The only thing is, whereas it used to cost $15 to ship it, now it's $150. Yeah. That's the big difference.
That was because it's like under 50 pounds or something. There's a weight thing or something, and so they tariffed that pretty hard, and that did, like,
and that does go to the consumer, which then
it does.
Now
that was the biggest. I would like to know.
But
That $88 million, how much of that came from there?
But we're talking about incentives, and when I go and look over there and see something that was costing me $1,000 per pack to ship, that I'm paying now, $1,000 plus $15 in shipping. Now I'm paying $1,000 plus $150 in shipping. It's incentivizing me to find ways to make it here.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can make it here for $1,100, and that's relative, cost to what it does cost me now plus shipping, it brings more money into our economy.
And that's I think the whole point is, how do we circulate the GDP? How do we circulate America's domestic product?
Yeah. And keep more employment here.
And that's the biggest thing. Not only does it circulate the economy and keep things going, but it creates jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, that I think raises everybody's level of living, the cost of, or the living standard, or whatever, however you want to word it.
It's almost like
standard of living. That's what I'm looking for.
With 7 kids, if I paid each of my kids $1 a week for chores, and that's what I could afford was $7 a week, and I go and take some of that money, build a product, sell it to my neighbor, called a lemonade stand, and they pay me $10, I can take that $10 and now pay my kids $2 a week, and I have $3, left over, because now I have more money circulating my house because I sold something external. So that's all it's doing. And by going to Germany and saying, I want Chevys on your roads, I want Fords on your roads, is they're convincing these companies to buy American-made products so that the money that they earned and created is now being circulated in our country.
Versus theirs.
Exactly. And it, again, strengthens the power of the dollar.
So the other thing that we hadn't talked about is probably the thing I'm most excited about from a real estate standpoint, on top of the bonus depreciation. But I think it might have been this week or this weekend or something like that, but Trump put out a Truth Social tweet, whatever you call it, about how American interest rate, the Fed rate, should be somewhere between 1% and 2%. Right now we're at 4.5%. So he's talking about we should be 3% lower. Basically, he's saying that the Fed has artificially raised it 3%. And so I forgot, Sweden or something like that, Norway, some country over there, they have a sub 1%.
There's some countries that have a negative.
I don't know if there is right now. I think this was the lowest main one, but it was sub 1%, whatever it was. But I mean, basically zero at that point in time.
Right.
And what, to me, if we get there, which I don't know if we ever will, like you're talking 4% interest rates to buy a house, 4.5% to 5.5% on investment properties. That will stimulate the economy tremendously. People will start buying. You'll start seeing properties move again.
But it's a tug and pull. That's basically all that they're doing is they raise interest rates to slow down how fast people are spending money, because they don't want hyperinflation. Because when you have extremely low interest rates for too long of a period, the inflation goes crazy because there's more money supply and goods and materials start costing much more. So then they raise the interest rates, they slow the money supplies to keep the costs lower.
I would argue that the interest rates is a lever to slow inflation, but it's not the cause of inflation.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So the inflation is happening on its own, and they want to maintain.
But why does the government want inflation? Like, if the government didn't want inflation, they could stop it today.
So they want inflation because it incentivizes people to continue investing money. And so
I don't think so.
Well, so for
I
example,
don't think that's why they want it, is what I mean.
Well, for example, if you buy a piece of real estate and there's no inflation, that property in 30 years is going to be worth just as much as it is today with zero inflation. Right?
That's the benefit of ownership based on it, but I don't think that's the government's reason for it.
I think that's the Fed's the Fed is not the government, right? They're a private institution.
I think they're all in bed together.
Oh, naturally. But if you had a piece of real estate that you knew in 30 years was going to be worth the exact same amount, would you buy it? Absolutely not.
Well, you would if that was the norm, because then you get loan pay down.
Right, but if it was worth the exact same amount, it wouldn't be worth the risk, right? The only reason that it's worth the risk is because it is an appreciating asset.
Because it's it beats inflation.
Exactly. So
But
the appreciation.
why does the government doesn't care if your property appreciates or not? Why does the government want inflation?
Well, the whole thing that we talked about with the incentives that they put in place is they incentivize business ownership and real estate ownership. And so if there is inflation, then it gets people to continue investing money rather than save it. Because if
but people
right now
invested in something else,
put in a savings account. You have a savings account that's earning 0.0025% interest. If that is beating the rate that I expect my property to appreciate, it's a smarter investment for me to just keep it in my savings account.
well, I would say that you still get loan pay down and rent, cash flow. So that's not, you would still beat interest rates. I guess what I'm getting at is the reason the government wants inflation is because if they borrow $1 billion and there's 3% inflation, 5 years from now, that $1 billion is worth less than 5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that, they're paying back money yesterday with today's dollars,
right?
Which is cheaper.
Which is how bonds.
So that's how they stay. That's how our debt, our national debt. That's how come they're not worried about it. Because yes, it's going up, but as long as it's going up less than inflation, which I don't know if it is or isn't right now, but they're fine.
Mm-hmm.
So if the national debt's going up 2.5% a year, and they're paying 1.5% on $1 trillion debt, it's still cheaper money.
Right. Exactly. And that's part of them looking at the jobs report, looking at unemployment, the GDP, looking into all those things, and that's how they track it. But inflation or the Fed rate increases and decreases is a reactionary measure. It's a lagging measure or a lagging action to tracking inflation. Because like you said, they don't move inflation. They just adjust the rate to try and make inflation go up or down.
Yeah. Or they can just dry up the supply.
Right.
I mean, they really wanted to, COVID, they put however much money, the M2 went up however much percent for causing all the inflation, all the money supply that they put in. They wanted to, they could just take all them. Hey, we're taking $1 trillion out of circulation next week. That would stop inflation, but they don't want that.
Right.
So
yeah,
they hurt well, I mean, they're hurting the government too. And that's Trump's, I think one of Trump's things is we're paying taxes, or we're paying China or whomever buys our debt back based off of our federal rate. So we're actually charging ourselves more money to pay back debt right now.
But the same thing is true at the micro consumer level. Is when you have a credit card and the interest rate is 15%, you're going to use it a little more sparingly. But when that interest rate drops to 3%, you're buying a boat, you're buying a new car, you're buying, you're upgrading your house, and that puts a lot more money into circulation.
Yeah.
Because you're using tomorrow's dollar to pay for that. Every time you use a credit card, you're using tomorrow's dollar to pay for something today.
Well, that's my philosophy.
And if tomorrow's dollar is worth more than today's dollar, then it makes sense to do that. But if it's not, then it makes more sense to save your money.
Yeah, because I look at anything basically below 5% or below, it's like free money.
Yeah.
I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, but that's kind of my philosophy on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what do you think? Do you think we'll get back to, say, a 1.5%?
No, for Fed rate, no. I don't think we'll see that in our lifetime.
In our lifetime,
I don't think so. I mean, the way I see it going, the interest rates are going to stabilize around that 5.5%, maybe 6% mark, and that's going to become the new norm until
when you say, we're just being picky here, are you talking about, so private home ownership versus investment properties are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Investment properties are a little bit higher. So when you say 5-6%? Are you talking about for if I want to buy a new home?
Yeah, I'd say for buying a new home somewhere in that 5% mark, and for investment properties,
About
it's
6.
it's going to be 75 to 100 basis points above that, which means that the Fed rate is going to be about a 3 for
Be 2. At 5% be 2.
it'd be
2.5.
about a 3. Yeah. So investment properties are typically, depending on where the market's at, between 250 and 300 basis points. So for home ownership, it's slightly below that. So I think that's going to become the new norm for a while. And
just for reference, I mean, you can speculate where home prices or home interest rates would be based off the Fed, but it's not tied to the Fed.
Right.
Investment properties are tied a lot closer to the Fed than.
Just as a general rule.
Just general rule. It's kind
and in a more specific sense, it has to do with what mortgage-backed securities are trading at based on alternative investments, right? Like if someone's going to buy mortgage-backed securities versus bonds, then there's a risk premium associated with that. And that's like we were talking about, is if it makes more sense to put money in a savings account than it does to buy a piece of real estate, that's how big investors, institutional investors, are looking at government issued bonds versus mortgage-backed securities. And if that risk premium makes sense based on the alternative. So if the government bonds are the risk-free premium, right? And the risk-free premium, meaning I can buy this with zero risk to me.
and you get tax incentive.
Right. Then that's 4%. In order for me to buy mortgage-backed securities, it needs to give me at least 1% above what my risk-free premium rate is, or whatever. And we're talking about smaller spreads or smaller premiums for larger amounts of money. Like if I'm moving $100,000, then I probably want my risk to be 3%. Like I'm going to buy an investment property if I can get 3% above what bonds can get me. But if I'm moving $100 million, 1% is adequate.
Yeah. So interesting enough, bought the new plumbing company, and when I got it, we got a money market account associated with it. So money market is based off from the Fed rate, about equal. You know, like Fed rate's 4.5. Your money market's could be about 4.5. So it just so happened this was the first month of having this money market, and so instead of having everything sitting in a checking account, I just would move it to the money market account and just kind of keep it in circulation, you know, with my own stuff. So I got paid the interest today. And I was like, I got $300, like just by a couple clicks of a mouse. And but that's a very micro level of moving stuff around risk-free and, you know, getting a little bit of money based off from it. So
it's nice though.
Yeah, I mean, now I got to pay taxes on $100 a day, but it's a total different ball of wax.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's how can you keep your money moving around? How can you watch the news without being
obsessive?
Yeah, and that's what I think a lot of times like people start letting the political side come into play versus how does this affect me? Like I try to look at it from an economic standpoint because that's kind of where my brain's.
Well, the wealthiest people, they it's not that they don't care about politics, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much when you have a significant amount of wealth. They look at more, where do I need to shift my investments based on who's in office?
Yeah, I should make a GPT that just gives me the news, like the daily,
objectively.
Yeah,
no fear mongering. No,
just search all these sites out there. There's 10 different sites.
There's one I saw. I'm gonna have to find it and show it to you. But it's a newer app, and what it does is it takes any topic that you might think of, and it could be a tragedy that happened, it could be economics, sports, whatever, and it'll show you side by side. Here's what CNN is saying about it. Here's what Fox is saying about it. Here's what Newsmax is saying about it, and you can watch the headlines for each topic.
See, I don't even want that. I just want it to tell me, just blend it all, give me a non-biased report. Because if I see that, I'm like, oh, I know CNN's here. I know Fox is here. I know Newsmax is here. I know Wall Street Journal's here. like then I'll start putting my own personal biases
Mhm.
on it versus just give me the non-biased
Yeah.
total picture of it, if you will.
I like the idea of seeing them side by side because
Yeah.
I
You
formulate my own opinion.
yeah, you like being spun up.
Yeah, exactly.
But so you said you roughly see it around 2.5-3% interest rates. Why do you say that?
Fed rate. Yeah.
Fed rate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just based on like we said, how the adjusting the Fed rate is a reactionary measure, and I couldn't give statistical reasoning as to why I think that is, but just seeing how they've made the adjustments and they say, oh, we're going to do another Fed cut or we're going to do another hike, and then they do the opposite, and how much song and dance there is to it. I just think the most plausible interest rate for the amount of growth that they want, and like we talked about with the balancing, they're trying to balance it, and maybe they have ulterior motives, but we can go down that conspiracy rabbit hole another day. Finding a place where our economy is most balanced and less volatile. If they drop the interest rate, the Fed rate down to sub 1%, spending increases significantly, our inflation goes back up to 11-12% like we saw post-COVID. And they don't want that. But if they keep the Fed rate at 5.5-6%, money stops too quickly. And so where do I see the happy medium is somewhere in that 2 to 3% Fed rate range, where there's less of this and the waves start coming, making more sense. Now they'll start to see a steady decline or a steady increase. And the time that it takes for that to happen, granted, they meet every, 90 days?
I don't think they have a regular meeting, but yes.
Okay. Well, so if it's every 90 days, whatever, or how often they typically meet, they're trying to judge these macro trends on a micro timeline. 90 days is a long time, yes, but there's a lot of money moving. And so trying to figure out how that money's moving over time, and then they make this adjustment and they see what happens. And that's all they can really do. And I think of it in the trucking world. You know what tends to happen when people are trying to back up a big long trailer for the first time? If you ever watch someone do it, not necessarily, but they adjust the wheel and then they start to move and then they adjust it back and then they adjust it back, and they're making all these corrections and they're not giving the trailer time to show you what it's trying to do. So what you have to do is make an adjustment, then let it roll 10 or 15 feet and see what it's going to do. And if you need to adjust, you adjust a little bit. So it's micro adjustments and then macro movement. That's what they're doing, is they make a micro adjustment, which is maybe 0.25% change, and then they let it roll for 90 days or 120 days. And then they see what it's going to do and they make another adjustment. And so right now, from COVID, where money stopped and then they gave out all these stimulus checks, cut the interest rates significantly, which we were already seeing really low interest rates, historically low interest rates. Then they see the money supply start going like this. And then they're like, oh, wait. It's like I think of it like a rubber band lasso. They're throwing that rubber band lasso up on it, trying to pull it back so that we don't get into hyperinflation. They pull it back and then they're like, all right, I think we're doing good. Oh, nope, too much. And now we got to, so they're just constantly doing this. And
it drives me nuts.
And until we get to the point where it's not going up and down as quickly and it starts to level out. And then when it starts to level out, then we'll see, is it trending downwards consistently or is it trending upwards? And the time that it might take that to happen is 10 years. It could take 10 years for them to get it stable to the point where it's not going drastically back and forth because they keep on going in and manipulating it.
You have way more confidence in them than I do.
Well, I think that I think in the terms of the levers, is they're pulling these levers trying to see what's going to happen, and then they let it roll for a while. And when it gets to the point where we see if it's trending upwards or downwards, we're going to be 10, 15 years into this.
Yeah, and then we'll have another
post-COVID
2008 or,
right.
We'll have something else that'll put it into another swing, and they'll be chasing that tail.
And we were long overdue for a recession. I mean, and recession isn't this major 2008 crash. There's been multiple recessions over the previous 20 years from COVID, or the previous 75 years, talking about from the Great Depression to the Great Recession. There's multiple micro recessions. And from 2008, we didn't really have any
I think we're going to
major.
see them less and less, though. And my theory behind this is we now have more data.
Mhm.
We have more access to knowledge.
Mhm.
We have more computing power. So we can do, you can run a Monte Carlo scenario on all of this really quickly.
Mhm.
You're testing 10,000 different scenarios all at once, and you take the average of them and say this is, what's possibly going to happen. You got your deviation and all that stuff. So
And they're plugging holes, trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. Like 2008 will not happen in the way it did again. Because they plugged the holes.
I don't think I'm not saying we will never see another recession. That's not what I'm getting at. But I think they'll get fewer and fewer and fewer.
Right. And just like we saw, whereas, prior to 2008, it was every 5 to 7 years. Yeah, 5 to 7 years that we saw another micro recession or recession. And then 2008, we didn't have another one for 15 years.
Well, there's still no one's officially ever said that we've had one.
It's a recession. I mean, let's call spade a spade. It's still a recession. And so 15 years. So if this takes 5 years to clean up, and then it's another 18 years before we see the next one, then that's 18 years of them trying to stabilize it, before it darts away from them again. So
what's your hot take? So big, beautiful bill, inflation, interest rates trying to bring them down. Where are we at? So like I said, we did this basically 6 months ago. Come Christmas time next year, first of the year, where are we 6 months from now? Are you bullish on buying stuff?
Not yet. I think 6 months ago, I'd love to rewatch that episode before, we talk about the next one at the 1 year mark. I had thought that we would see major fire sales going on, which we have seen an increase in sales.
Mostly in the larger.
Right, in larger purchases, because most commercial, I think there was like 85 or 90% of the commercial market refinanced their debt between 2018 and 2020. Those are typically on 5, sometimes 7-year notes, at the highest 10-year notes, and they balloon. So 2019, that would have come to fruition at the end of 2024. What we didn't expect, or what I didn't expect, is that all these banks would give extensions, because they don't want all their debt coming due all at once. So they give a 1 year extension. They give an 18-month extension. They're just hoping to kick the can long enough so that things start to make sense again.
Yeah, because they're still using the theory behind it. Why a bank wouldn't want to do that is because we gave you 3%. Today we can get 7%.
Mm-hmm. Which won't meet debt service, and you'll have delinquent loans.
Well, yeah, but from a bank standpoint, you would want to, in theory, get the 7% if you can. They realize that they can't get it because, say you bought the property for $10 million, it might only be worth $8, or it might only cash flow at $8 million.
Mm-hmm.
And people aren't going to want to, for one, the sellers aren't going to, they don't want to sell. And if the bank's going to work with them, they're not going to sell. But they would rather take the loss than lose money in being locked in for another 5 years.
Right. And in a simple sense, yes, they would want to lend money that's currently at 4.5%, lend it out at 7%. Like, yeah, it's 3% difference. That makes sense. Or 2.5% difference.
But they can't.
But
because it won't meet debt service, like you said.
Yeah, it won't meet the debt service. It won't meet the loan to value requirements. No. So what
no one wants to raise 50%.
Right. And then that will start to affect their individual banks, because if they have, let's say 50% of their loans are coming to maturity and they all are in that same boat where they can't meet debt service at a 7%, then those owners either have to inject more cash, which the investor market's dried up because there's uncertainty in the markets. They're not able to raise more capital to inject into these properties. So then they're left with fire selling it, which is just going to wash away equity. And then a lot of banks aren't going to be able to recoup their entire investment.
And they're still going to make less money relative to, if I have a property that have a loan for $10 million at 4% interest rate, they have to fire sell it at $7 million or $6.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm getting 7%. Like my upside isn't very high for the bank.
Mm-hmm.
I just put a new. A lot of times these investors are doing well. Like these are all things outside of their control. So now you're increasing your risk as a bank because now you're putting a new investor in charge of a property.
Mm-hmm.
These people didn't do anything necessarily. It's just the economy that changed.
Right.
And so why increase your risk putting somebody else in the seat when these other people theoretically didn't do anything wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just, I mean, these people get paid well to make these decisions. So it's a lot of moving parts. That's why I really hate politics. Rephrase that. That's why I really hate Facebook politics. It's because everybody tries to look at it from a simplistic, well, that sounds good, or this doesn't sound good, but you don't look at the whole area around it. So, but yeah. What else? Got anything else economy wise that you think's gonna?
I think right now there's a lot of people that are shifting to the sidelines. They're sitting on cash, expecting, I don't say bubble to burst, but expecting things to start getting fire sell, and they can get them in at a discount.
Yeah.
And so with the investment market having a lot of cash on the sidelines, and maybe they're just putting it into safe things like bonds or like we talked about S&P, they're just sitting on that cash waiting for something to happen. And I don't think we're going to see it this calendar year. Maybe spring 2026 we'll start to see some shift when these banks can't keep kicking the can, 12 months on these delinquent loans. But we've seen the impact it's had on office market. Like the office properties have been, since COVID, they were as low as some markets in 50 or 60% occupancy across the market. That's starting to come back. A lot of companies have done away with the teleworking. You saw a lot of people that were teleworking for multiple companies. Like that's unheard of in our history. To have 3 jobs where you're teleworking from all 3, and then they go move to a rural area. These, Silicon Valley people were moving to the Midwest to have a lower cost of living and still work 3 jobs paying Silicon Valley salaries. Like that's insane.
Is it insane or is it smart?
It's smart, yeah.
I'm just
it's insane that we see it in the marketplace. And so now people are being required to come back into the workforce, and which is contributing to unemployment rising because people don't want to go back to work. So it's interesting but I think, like we said, just push that trailer 10, 15 feet. It's going to be probably 2026 before we really start to see the impacts post-COVID of us getting back into something that makes sense. And makes sense not even in a good way, but makes sense like we can see a downward trend or a positive trend. Right now, there's too much back and forth.
Yeah, I'm really excited for 2026. I don't think we'll see much.
I think the way it is now is how we'll see it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's kind of make a political statement here. I think Trump has pissed off Powell so much. He's not going to do much. He's not going to try to help. He would rather hurt the economy than help Trump, right? And that's just my opinion. I don't know the guy. I've never met him. And
that's politics too.
It is like
you look at the Congress.
Not even politics. It's just psychology.
Well, Congress does this all the time, and they did it in his first presidency. That they would rather shoot down a bill that helps people because they don't want that success tied to Trump's name.
Oh, yeah. Like I'll give prime example. Is it? I don't know, somewhere around October to December timeframe when the Democrats were still in power. They did the continuing resolution, and no Republicans voted for it.
Yeah.
Then whatever it was, March or whatever, when Trump and the Republicans are in charge, it was the same continuing resolution. No Democrats voted for it, and most of the Republicans voted for it. Like. It was the same bill, the same everything, and it just flip-flopped roles because no one wants to vote for the other party. So,
and I don't think we're going to solve that problem in this podcast. So
no, but I'm just using that as an example. Like, you can, like, this is why I hate politics, if you will. Like, they're all lying. But anyhow, that's my hot take to let this go.
I'm going to work on getting some politicians on this podcast. So
hey, Right. I'm game. So I just like a lot of things. So I'll argue with everybody.
Well, look forward to referencing this back and maybe putting some clips of our
We probably should have
predictions.
watched the other one before, but
we'll watch them both before the December podcast.
Cool. Well, look forward in 6 months to doing this again.
All right, it's a wrap.